Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Foam Stamps 101. Today we're going to make labels and tickets because they're both very similar in the way that you make them. So I did want to show you the background stamp that I started on the background stamp video is complete now, and I messed around with it on here, but it works very well. So that was last week's video, if they come out in the same order as the way I'm making them. But today we're going to do, a lot of people in their mixed media collage and stuff, they like to put labels and tickets on their projects. And they buy stamps to do that. So I thought we're going to make our own. I'm going to show you how it's really not hard at all. For the labels, they're basically plain. They don't have any wording on them. They may have an outline or something, but so they're very simple. And you can make them in many different shapes. Now, most of your labels, when you see them, they're in some form of a rectangle, but they don't have to be. And this one, I just went ahead and I just took my ruler, I guess it was this one, and I just drew around my ruler. This one is 2.5 inches long and 1.25 inches wide. So I just went ahead and I just put a mark and a mark and then cut across after I drew my lines, and I got my shape. So now if you want it to be just plain old rectangle, you've got it. You can do outlines on it. You can also, if you want to have some kind of a corner on it, you can make a little corner template. You don't have to have a corner rounder, and a lot of your corner rounders won't fit this thicker fun foam anyways. So just cut an angle, and then you're going to use that same angle on all 4 corners. Here is a little bit of a bigger angle. I did put a little mark so you could kind of see what the angle looks like. And then I did a rounded corner. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your top, or if this is the side, however you want to call that. So we'll say this is a side and this is the top. So you're going to want to hold this in the same direction on each corner. So we've got the side lined up here, and we are just going to, you can draw around it, or just, I usually just hold it up there and cut around it. Now I want to make sure that this part of my tag or my template is towards the side. So I'm going to flip it over so that my angle is the same as it was over here. So we're just going to put that there and do it again. Now again, I want this to be on the side. So in order to make that happen, I'm going to flip it over again, hold that up to the side. And finally, the last one, this needs to be on the side. So I'm going to flip it over so it touches the side. And this will make your angles pretty close. With your rounded angles, sometimes it really kind of depends on how well you hold it on there. But we'll flip it over, and those corners look pretty close to the same. Now, this will be just very, very plain. So if you don't want it to be plain, it's a label. You could draw some lines on it so that it has a place to write. Those lines, again, would be whatever color your background paper is. Or you can just draw around it. I like to kind of have a border on my labels. So maybe like you could do a straight line, or you could kind of do a bit of a curvy line. You can do it with your ruler. And I'm just first off getting the actual design on here, and then we'll go over it a couple of times to indent it a little more so that it doesn't show up when we stamp. And there we go. So now just go around it a couple of times, but you can use your ruler to put straight lines on here, and you can measure to make sure that everything is the same distance away from the edges. To me, it doesn't need to be perfect. I think part of the reason I like my own stamps is the little imperfections are what make them mine. What makes them different. You know, the ones that come out of a factory and you buy them at the store, they're exactly like the one your neighbor buys. And so I like mine to be different. And if you make one like this, yours is still not going to be exactly like mine. They're going to be unique. And I'm not even going to be able to make two that are exactly the same unless I really, really carefully measure things and be super careful. And even then, because we're human, they are probably not going to be perfect. So now I'm doing this with an ink pen because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. If you use a dried out ink pen, the roller still works, and you can do this without getting ink on your label. So because sometimes that ink will come off on your project, but only until it's gone, and that depends on if it was pushed down far enough. Maybe it won't come out at all. You just test them and see. So that's, you know, just like a plain old rectangle label. Now, that's going to be a solid color label when you stamp it with a bit of a white outline or whatever the background color of your paper is with an outline. You can also do, a lot of the labels they're basically just like that, except they have a, I'm going to just try and cut this. They have a hole in the middle. So when you stamp it, it's just the outside of the label. So I'm going to, again, I'm just going to eyeball it, but you can measure this to make sure that it's all the same because this will not be perfect. I'm going to lightly draw a line because I don't need this line to make an indent. I just want a line to cut to. So just kind of try and make it as straight and even as the others. Make them all about the same size. There. Okay, so now a lot of them have it to where the center is cut out. So you can just, now don't fold it tight to put a crease in the middle, but just kind of fold it in half so that you can get a start. That just makes it the easiest way to start. You can use your X-Acto knife to cut around it and just make sure that you stop at the corner. Don't go a little bit past because if you go past, it will show up when you stamp. So we're just going to go from here to that corner and from here to that corner and get this one down here. And then I usually just kind of hold it up and cut it this way. And smaller scissors may work better. You know, it just all depends on what you have. And trying to make as little amount of cuts as possible as far as like chop, chop, chop. Makes your line a little bit smoother. So now this one, I cut one like this just a little while ago. I did make some already and get them glued down so that I'm not trying to cut them out while the glue is still wet on my cardboard. But I cut it kind of like this, and I really liked the way it looked, so I left it like that. I don't know what it's going to look like when we stamp it, and if I don't like it, then I can just use the X-Acto knife and cut that off. But I kind of liked the way it looked like an hourglass. It was much smoother than this one was as far as where the center was cut. So I liked the way it looked and I kept it. And that's the thing, you know, it's like I knew what I was doing. This is exactly what I was doing. And then I wound up changing it up. So there we go. There is a square one with no rounded corners. If your little squares are the same length, you can go ahead and you can chop it from one corner of that little square to the other on an angle on each one. And then you'll have, you know, corners like that on an angle. So but this one will leave it as a rectangle. So, and then you can do squares, and I like to do circles. So, and again, like you can draw around something. I actually made one with this this lid, and I went ahead and I put it on my fun foam, and because it's got the lip on it, I just pressed it down really hard, and then I cut in that press. So I also have this is like the protective cover of a deodorant thing, and it's an oval, and I think that's really cool. So I could just take that and just press it down really good, and then you don't even have to draw around it because it actually has a lip on it. You can just press down on it and then cut around. See? And then just cut around that area there, and then we will have an oval stamp, which I really like. Well, yes, it is a stamp, but we'll have an oval label. So, and just take your time with them so that they're not all choppy. Move your fun foam as much as you can versus moving your scissors. It gives you a much smoother cut. And try and again start a new cut as little as you can, like go as far as you can before you start cutting again. And just take your time, move your fun foam as you're closing your scissors, and then try and not get the little point at the end. Try and really smooth that out, and there we go. Now we have an oval label, and again, we could go around the edges, you know, to put a line around the edges. I can fold it in half and cut the center out so that it is an outline instead of a solid piece. And I also like circles. To cut your own circle, I find that the easiest way to do it is to start in the middle of a square. You look towards the next edge, and that is what helps you do the best you can on just freehanding a circle. So, and I am going to, we'll just try and do just a regular circle. So we'll just go ahead, start here, look towards the center of that line as we're turning our, and you do want your square to be pretty square. Now I'm going to look towards the center here. And as I get very close to that center, I'm going to look towards the next one and just keep turning that point towards where my scissors are cutting. And I'm going to look up here kind of to where I started and just keep turning until you get there. And there, it's kind of a square circle, but it's still a circle. And then we can use this, remember, for something else. So do we want this one to be an outline, or do we want it to be solid? I have one already that I have cut as an outline. So I think that I'll leave this one solid and just give it a border. And you can do, well, we'll just do a straight border on this one. So just kind of try and do it to where it's about the same distance from the edge. Doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be fun. So we'll just get that first line in there. And there we go. Now we can go around it and kind of really press that in. Now that we know we like where it's at. Now, I was pressing a little hard anyway, so it would have still had a mark there. But if you get it and you don't like it, just make it a little bit messy. Put another one over top of it, like a little bit wavy over top of it. And then you'll never know that the other one didn't look exactly the way you want it. Nobody will know that. And you may get something that really looks cool. Some of the best things I've ever done is something that I had to try and fix it somehow because it just wasn't what I wanted when I finished with it. And so there we go. And that again is another solid stamp, but if I wanted, I could just cut it out right there instead of just putting the line on there. So let's see. Oh, let's see, like even could take this one here because it has a lip on it. This one can't, but there's enough distance here that I can push this onto my fun foam and make this shape. So if you don't want to do your own shapes, and you don't want to freehand it, you can just find something that has a bit of a lip and use it to press into your fun foam. Whoop, and that fell apart. So now we have this shape. And I'll just take my time. It's a little bit hard to see. I've got quite a shadow there. And there we go. Now we've got this oval, and we can do with it what we want to. Put that one over there. So then you have all of these, and we're going to glue them to, we'll just glue them to some cardboard and let them dry. And then we'll make some tickets too. So we would just glue these on. I just paint my glue on here with, well, we'll do it so that they're done. And if your paintbrush, I keep my paintbrush in the water while I'm working on these. If your paintbrush is a touch wet, especially with this tacky glue, is a little bit thick, the wet brush just kind of helps move it a little bit. And there's enough glue on here that the water on your brush is not going to water it down too much. I'm not going all the way out to the edges because I don't want to get the glue on my background paper there so that it gets all over everything. And I'm not going to stick my stamps right out to the edge anyways, but do make sure that you have glue all the way to the edge of your stamps. So make sure that wherever they're touching, that glue is all the way around. Was that one plain, or did I? Okay, that was plain. Put this one this way. And then you can put a piece of parchment on top of this and put a book on top. And let them dry. It really is best to let them dry at least for a while, if not overnight. I prefer overnight, but I usually do get a little bit too carried away. So, you know, at least try and get them an hour or something. So here are some that I've already done. And so there is a circle where I did cut out the center, and this one, instead of cutting the circle as a real circle, I just made it wavy lines. And so that makes a really fun label. And I could do this as a solid circle too with the wavy lines on the outside edge, but not cut the center out. So the thing about doing your own labels like this is you can look at the different labels that people have, and a whole ton of them are just pretty much like the kind of like the oblong shape, you know, a rectangle. So, but you know, it's like fun having your own and having all the different type shapes, because a round label might look way better than the rectangle label on certain projects. And like this one and the round, you know, they really kind of are going to look like a label, but I've got a circle here that like doesn't have anything extra on it. It's just really it can just be a circle if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be a label. And if I wanted, I could go ahead and put a circle on the outside, which maybe I will at some point. But first, I'll probably just mess with it a little bit and see. Maybe I'll even put like lines across this way as writing lines. So it's all just about playing around with it, and because it's fun foam and it's very cheap, and your cardboard is just recycled, and you don't use very much glue, you know, it seriously is just a project that is fun to play with, and you don't have to worry about wrecking it or making 5 that are almost the same but not quite. One has a line around the edge, one has the center cut out, one has a wavy line around the edge, you know, one has wavy edges. You know, you can make the same shape in so many different ways. You could do this rectangle with wavy edges. You could do this rectangle with the line inside. You can do it straight like this. You can do it with the center cut out. So like this exact same shape you can do in so many different ways. And this is the one that was going to be, I'm curious to see how this one looks, because this is the one that I was supposed to be cutting out the center. And after I cut the 2 ends off, it was like, I kind of like the way that looks. I want to see what it looks like when I stamp it. And on this one, I did cut the little corners off, whereas on the other one, I left them. So see how many just simple shapes you can do and make them in so many different ways. So let's get rid of all of this cardboard on here. I'm going to take my extra pieces of fun foam and toss them back there with all the rest. And so, but remember, make yourself a template, and then that makes it easy to get your corners the same, because otherwise sometimes it's like chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it, you know, trying to get them the same, and eventually it's so small you can't use it anymore. So let's put these up here. And now to do a quick ticket, we'll go ahead and let's just make a straight line here. I'm not going to push real hard. I just want to be able to see it. All right, and then how long do I want it to be? Let's make it 3 inches is a really, actually pretty good size ticket. So 3 inches there, and then don't forget that a lot of your rulers actually have an extra, they have an extra length to them. So the one, your actual measurements start right here, but yet we've got this extra. If you're going to draw at the end, that's fine. Just remember, either draw at the starting point or draw at the end on both of your marks, so that you know you've got a straight, you're going to have a straight line. Because this is so close together, I can hold my scissors from one mark to the next and just cut it. I don't have to draw a line there. And then cut this out. Because it is a ticket, there's 2 ways of making tickets. One is they have like they really have a real ticket. They have a circle in the middle where they're perforated here, and then there is a circle punched in the middle, so half the circle is on this ticket and half of the circle is on the next ticket in the row of tickets. So what I do is, and it's very hard to see, and I doubt that you even can see it, but I have a little red mark here at the halfway point of my hole, and a red mark here at the halfway point of my hole. And so I can take this, if I want to do it in the center, and just hold it here. Now I can eyeball like the center of the ticket, or I can measure, but then I can make sure that I stick it on the line so I get a half of a punch there, and they'll all be about the same. You know, it's not going to be exactly perfect, But there we go. So now that kind of looks like a ticket. The other type of ticket that they have, and I'm just going to freehand this one, is where the corners are cut off. So you can also take it, and I have a line on each side, but I also have a line right in the center. And I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably not, because it just shines. It's even hard for me to see here in person. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that center of the hole and this center of the hole on this side, and I'm going to line this up with those 2 marks and give it a punch. Then I'm going to come and do this side, and I'm going to line it up with those 2 marks and give it a punch. Whoops. And do the same here. Because there's static in this foam, it's like sticking in my thing here and kind of getting in my way to see. And then just line up those 2 marks, the mark in the front and the mark on the side. And now we have this type of a ticket where it has the 4 corners that look that way. So that one looks like that. And you can use that ticket just like it is. And again, you know, glue it on a piece of cardboard and let it dry. And then we have this ticket. You also can write on your tickets. And so you can, there are programs where you can learn to, or where you can have your computer write backwards for you. Or you can write down a word and look at it and try and do it backwards and just practice. So admit, okay, the letters have to be backwards, but they also have to be written backwards. That's why a lot of times I will write the word down, even if I think I don't really need to, like I know how to make these letters backwards. Write it down so that you start, so that you think, okay, this A has to be over here, so that when you flip your stamp over, the A will be on this side. It has to start on this side so that when you flip it over, it is now in the correct order. So, and then I write it backwards. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the A and then D. And in looking at it, you know, it helps you to kind of decide, you know, if you need to. There's M, I, T, and then I could put the word 1, or I could put the number 1, which number 1 is usually like this. So the sweep comes off of the T. So it's going to be this way and then down like that. Okay. And so that gives you something to look at and to know that's about the size I'm going to want it even. And you can put that right on your ticket. So I'm going to kind of center it up a little bit and kind of make it about the same size. If you want to have it have a straight line, you can go ahead and put a line on here to write on. And if you want them all to be the same height, I'm just going to really lightly make a line for myself. You probably won't be able to see it, but I can see it. So see, just a very light line because I don't want to dent in my foam. So I'm going to just line this up. So my A is going to go here. And if I want them all to be the exact same height, I can put another line up there. And then I'm just kind of looking at what I've already got done. And I kind of want them to come down to here. I'm not really pressing hard yet. And then the last thing is a little bit of a swoosh up. And then you're just going to go back and forth to make a dent. And these are the hardest ones for me to be patient with. I always want to see this thing stamped as soon as I get it done, because I want to know if I did it right. I want to see how it looks. And so I always want to just like glue it and use it right away. But you're better off to let it dry, at least for a little while. But we are going to not let this one dry. We're going to look at it very shortly after we stamp the others. We'll give it a little bit of time to dry. And then if you want, you can put other little marks on here. You can put little circles with your pen. Just go ahead and put a little circle there, there. And those aren't exactly even. That one was a little too far that way, but you know what? That is my stamp. That's the way it turned out. So we'll quickly put this one on here. Oh, we got a couple others too, so we'll put those on there. So just make sure that you don't use the spot on your cardboard that has the fold on it, so that it doesn't make any marks on your stamp coming up from underneath, because there's... So we've got that one and this one. Did we do any others? Oh, the other ones, I was going to say, I thought we did a circle. Okay, so now they are all there. And again, you could do admit one on there. You could put fun on there. Again, just write it backwards. And again, if you can't do it yourself or you just aren't comfortable, try using a computer program. And if you don't have a computer, maybe somebody could do it for you. And make it, there is a program that makes them go backwards. So you can try that. And here is one. I was going to do this one, admit one, with the number 1 at the end. And I ran out of room. So then I had to use the word 1. I put it there. I could have just put admit. I could have left it with just admit, but I wanted it to say something. So let's really quickly put handles on the back of all of these. And then we'll stamp. And the thing is, when I do labels, when I stamp them, I normally stamp, like I get a whole sheet of paper and I stamp a bunch of labels on it. And then someday when I'm sitting watching TV or whatever, I cut them all out and throw them in a little container of some sort, so that when I'm ready to use them, I have them already, they're already stamped, they're already cut out. I stamp them in different colors. A lot of times I will do one color on like each piece of paper. Will have a lot of different labels, but they'll all be the same color. And then I'll do another sheet of paper in a different color with all of my different labels. And then I have them. And then it's something to do on a night when you want to sit and watch TV, but you need to keep your hands busy. Or even if you're just sitting in your art room and you want something to do and you just can't think of anything, sit and cut them all out. So it gives you something to do, and it's still creative. Even cutting is, you know, just cutting is creative. So go ahead and do that whenever you feel like it. You don't have to like make them all and cut them all and all at the same time. You can do it later. So there we go. And let's see, I did get some paper this time. I remembered. I need to bring out a book though one of these times, but I think that box is doing okay. So let's I don't know what color we want to do them in. I'm just going to do them in this yellow. because I know that the pad is pretty, it's got a lot of ink on it. You're gonna flip them over and look at them and make sure that you've got ink everywhere. Kind of looks like it. And then just press it down, hold it for a minute, let that ink soak into the paper, and then, ooh, that looks cool. And that's got a little bit of the blue on it because I used a real ink pen with ink in it. Normally I would use an ink pen that was dry because the roller ball rolls really nicely, but then it doesn't get ink on my project. So if you can see, there's a little bit of ink here and here, and eventually that stops anyways, even if it does come off. But I don't mind it. I actually kind of like it. To me, it kind of looks like shadows or something. So, and then I'm just going to do all of them just once. But normally I would just like maybe do a whole line of those and a whole line of those, depending on how many different ones I had at the time in front of me. So we'll just do, and you know, you never know if you want like the solid color or if you might want the lighter color. So I always try and do a stamp off. Now this one pretty much showed all of my lines. And sometimes it has to do with the type of ink that you're using too, whether it reacts with, the ink pad reacts with the ink from the pen to pull those lines off. So there is that one. And again, we have all of the ink on that one, the pen ink on there. So, and then you just cut them out and you have them all ready to go when you're ready for them. And if you want, again, you can put any kind of marks on them. Really on a label, I don't know that I would want to mark it too much except around the edges, because like the labels are kind of made to right in the middle. Now you have to be careful about pressing too much in the middle when you have one where the middle is cut out. You want to try and make sure that you press around the edges, and I was just holding my finger right there in the middle, so I might have a smudge of ink in the middle. And you can cut the center of your cardboard out. I prefer to have my handle to set it down with and to pick it back up with, and I did not get anything there in the middle. And I think that I left that there so long, I don't know if we'll have a second generation stamp on this one or not. But we'll see. Barely. All right, so that is, I'll show you what this one looks like. I'm gonna make sure we actually do get the ink everywhere. And there we go. And the E is a little bit, I don't want to say that full, but you can now write inside there where it says admit one. You can leave it like it is, because you can still tell that that says one. So you could write it like that if you wanted to, but being that it's a label or a ticket, you can go ahead and make it solid and then just write it on there yourself. I kind of like the background saying admit one on some, and then the regular like tickets like that. I do want to try this one. Like I said, I'm never very patient. And you can punch out the cardboard next to, like at the end where the holes are. I don't, because like, unless you were to press really hard there, the ink doesn't get on that part of the cardboard. And so it's okay. I need to be careful because these have glue all over them, still kind of wet. So I'm kind of over here letting it drop on my table. I don't want it to drop on my paper or my other stamps and get that glue on my stamps. Now these ones where I do the corners, these ones I do chop off that corner, because that kind of very possibly could. And because my glue is still quite wet, my ticket is moving on my cardboard, which is not really a good thing. Okay. So we'll really quickly put a label or a handle on these two. And then we'll cut a couple out too, just so you can see what they look like. I didn't pick the best color ink because that, well, maybe that could be somebody else's favorite color. I don't really care for it, but I knew that it would, out of the couple stamp pads that I have sitting out here right now, I knew that it was wet enough to pick everything up, to be able to get the ink quicker. So you just want to make sure that you do have the ink everywhere. And then give it a stamp. And see if we get a second one. And then on these ones, when you cut them out, you can actually use your hole punch to go ahead and get that circle instead of having to cut the corner circle, or especially this one where the half circle is in the middle. That's a little bit hard to cut that out and make it look even. So just use your hole punch after you cut it out straight. Use your hole punch to go ahead and go in there, and looks like I've got it. And if you do them on cardstock, if you stamp them on cardstock, you know, then it makes a heftier embellishment. And you can go around the edges of them with some ink to distress them a little bit. So there we go. We've got two of them. And even this one, you can't see it much, I don't think, on the camera, but even that does have the Admit One on there. So that's how our labels and our tickets can show up. Let's just cut a few of these out. And I want to try and use the hole punch to punch this end part of this one. Just so we can see how that works. And again, because this one is right on the corners, it is not hard to just do like that. But maybe it doesn't look quite as round as if I had used the punch. And there is one of our tickets. And always make sure after you do these, even the very light line that I drew on here to make sure that I was straight, even that came off. So this ink must somehow react with the pen, with the ink in that pen. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just punch that out. And since it's already white, I don't really have to line it up with my edges here. I can just look where I need to punch it. That one I didn't quite get the end cut off. Get that white up there. So there is that ticket and that ticket. And then some labels. And you know, the reason I like to cut them out is because then when if you've got them all on one piece of paper, which some people like to do that and then just stick them in a binder so that they can look through and, you know, pick out from the whole piece of paper and then cut it out. I like to have them in a little box or something so that I can pick it up and stick it on my project and see if I like the way that it looks there. And so that is all really just personal preference and the way that people see things differently. So the way that I see things is not necessarily, you know, the way that I look at things is not necessarily the way that you look at them. I kind of need to really actually see it on the project versus just looking at a piece of paper going, that one might look nice. I've done that before, but I just find it harder to do. Oh, and then this one is just the other ticket. So since I guess since I have it here, I'll go ahead and finish it. So these are our tickets and our labels. And I hope that if you make some, you have a really good time making them, because they are really super fun to do. And even just sitting and I really do enjoy sitting and cutting. And I think part of it may be is that they're easy to cut. They are very, very easy to cut. So versus fussy cutting, you know, like out of a magazine or something. I don't mind doing that either. But this I kind of, and maybe it's because I made them and they're my stamps. And so I feel like I have accomplished something. I'm not really sure exactly why I enjoy it so much, but I really do enjoy cutting them out. So there we go. There's all different sorts of shapes that you can make. We've got the ones that we still haven't even tried stamping yet, but they're going to look like these ones where they're cut in. It's going to look like this with the little white edge, and then we're going to have the one with the hole, which will look like the circle here. So yeah, I think that these turn out really well. So, and they're very easy to do. So go have a play, try some, let me know what you think of them. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.